Dear colleagues, for you I think it can be shocking information. The fact is that atoms, as follow from our studies, do not have nuclei and are elementary molecules of hydrogen atoms. So the nuclear structure of atoms is the greatest myth ever. Apparently, just for this reason, there is still no single adequate theory of the structure of nuclei. It is impossible to describe the behavior of something that does not exist in reality. Indeed, for explaining the experimentally observed phenomena, physicists invented more than a dozen different models of the nucleus: drop, shell, collective, generalized, rotation, superfluid, cluster, statistical, optical, vibration, quark-gluon, plasma, and so on. What is the main cause for the inability of physicists to create an adequate theory of atom? The cause is very simple. It is a conceptually erroneous approach adopted in physics as the creation of theories. What approach do I have in mind? All modern theories, including the theory of the atom and the theory of the nucleus, develop within the framework of the Standard Model and rely, like the Standard Model itself, on numerous abstract mathematical, that is, invented postulate, which are the result of subjective fancy. Naturally, theories based on fictional postulate are inadequate to reality. What is the basis such as theories? A new physics theory called the Wave model, developed by us as alternative to the Standard Model, is based on a new, in principle, paradigm of physics. I'll show you how on the basis of this new theory we came to a fundamental discovery, to the discovery of the molecule-like nuclear-free structure of atoms, and as a consequence to a whole series of other discoveries, such as discovery of the nature of isotopes, discovery of the primary cause of the observed regularity in chemical properties of elements first formulated by Mendeleev in his periodic law, discovery of anisotropy of the hexagonal lattice of graphene, and so on. And what is surprising, the unique results that I am talking about, we have obtained directly from the well-known particular solution of the general classical wave equation. I'll show it. Common point view on the structure of atoms was fully formed following the Standard Model in the framework of the theories of atomic and nuclear physics and quantum mechanics. This view is based on two main concepts. First, atoms have tiny superdense nuclei in their centers. This concept originates from the Rutherford hypothesis. Practically the whole mass of the atom, the mass of protons and neutrons, except of electrons, is concentrated in this diminutive nucleus, radius of about 10 to minus 13 power centimeter. Dimensions of the atom and its nucleus differ about 100,000 times. Consequently, the density of the nucleus is fantastically enormous, of the order of 10 to 14 power gram per centimeter cubed. And the atom, in fact, is in an empty space. Second, electrons in atoms are localized and move within the so-called atomic orbitals. This concept arose when three-dimensional images of certain polar functions, the polar component of the solution of the general wave equation, and special figures formed at the rotation of their section and combination thereof became considered arbitrarily, unfoundedly by the creators of quantum mechanics as a region called atomic orbitals of the location and motion of electron in an atom. The modern concept of an atom is not perceived by common sense. The size of the hydrogen atom is defined by the first Bohr orbit, whose radius is equal to this value. The radius of its nucleus, proton, as believed, is equal to this value, that is about 100,000 times less than Bohr radius. Imagine the physical image of such an atom, believing that it has a spherical shape. To do this, let's increase its radius by 10 to 10 power times. We will obtain a sphere with a diameter of 2 meters, which can fit in a small room occupying an area of about 3 meters squared. Even with such a huge increase, we will not be able to see in the center of the atom, in the center of the sphere occupying completely the room, the nucleus, whose size in this scale will be only about 10 microns. So we see that really the atom, according to modern idea, is in fact an empty space. On the other hand, from the dynamic model developed by us, it follows that proton and hydrogen atom are practically equal in size. Look here, 0.528 multiplied by 10 to minus 8 power centimeter, and here 0.529, so it's a practically equal value. So it is consistent with common sense and corresponds to reality. The hydrogen atom H and its ion H plus proton are indistinguishable visually and practically, look identical. The wavelength of X-ray has the same order of magnitude, which allowed using them in the structural analysis of substances. From our point of view, all arguments allegedly confirming the reality of an existence of atomic nuclei and atomic orbitals as physical formation are unconvincing. Therefore, the adequacy of the common view on the structure of atom always causes our reasonable doubts. These doubts really turned out to be fair. To date, we have more than enough argument revealing the fallibility of basic concept underlying the standard model, which led to the creation of inadequate theories that currently dominate physics. We have in mind in particular quantum mechanics and hence quantum chemistry. The validity of the above conclusion, to which we came in the course of comprehensive analysis, fully confirmed. To be sure in this, see for example the following compelling documents. It's 3 papers, important results of analyzing foundation of quantum mechanics, Schrödinger errors of principle, and conceptual fathers of hybridization, the nature of spherical harmonics, and the book Some Words About Fundamental Problems of Physics. All this material are available in internet. So it's a cover of the book. So we have every reason to assert that all theories, including quantum mechanics, which adhere to the standard model, are inadequate to reality. This is why modern physics cannot cope with the main key problems. What is a charge? What is the nature of the origin of the mass? What is the nature of gravity? What is the nature of origin of the structure of all atomic isotopes? What is the physical meaning of the speed c in the famous equation energy equals mass times the speed of light squared? What is the nature of phi structure constant alpha? Is unable to derive magnetic moments of the neutron and proton, to build a unified field theory, erroneously interprets polar azimuthal functions in the Schrödinger equation, the nature of cosmic microwave background radiation, a phenomenon called the length shift, etc. Nevertheless, despite these flaws, for mainstream physicists, standard model is like a sacred cow for the majority Hindu community, and they consider standard model as the greatest theory and outstanding achievement of mankind. Therefore, undertaking huge effort to improve the standard model, they keep its basic concept unchanged, despite the fact that all the effort during long time on the whole are unsuccessful. As alternative to the standard model, we were developing for many years of research a new general physics theory which would be more adequate to reality, and for this reason could solve the problem unsolvable principle within the standard model. As a result, we created such a theory and called it the wave model. Today, the wave model includes two models: dynamic model of elementary particles and Shell-Nodal atomic model. All the listed above problem, all this listed here problem, were resolved within the framework of the wave model. New concepts on which the wave model is based vary greatly from the relevant concept underlying the standard. Namely, the wave model is based on dialectical philosophy and dialectical logic, dialectics, in contrast to the formal logic accepted in modern physics, and on the axiom about the wave nature of all phenomena and objects in the universe. It is the only axiom underlying the wave model, and no postulates are used in the wave model, whilst an unlimited number of abstract mathematical fictional postulates are the basis of the modern physics theories. That is one of the main reasons of all problems faced them. The wave model is described in detail in the book Atomic Structure of Matter Space and in the series of the lectures Discoveries of the Wave Model collected together. You can find in particular in the conclusion in the book some words about fundamental problem of physics. From the wave model, it follows that first, atoms are elementary molecules of hydrogen atoms, to which we refer as a proton, neutron, and proton. And there are no superdense nuclei in their center. As a consequence of these key discoveries, we came to a whole series of other discoveries. In particular, we revealed that a carbon two-dimensional hexagonal lattice of graphene is anisotropic and has two-fold rotation symmetry, but not six-fold as is commonly believed. Basic steps on the way to the above-mentioned discoveries. We took for granted that the structure of atoms having, in accordance with the basic axiom of the wave model, the wave nature, should be described by well-developed method of the physical wave, and in particular by the general classical wave equation, equation 1. This equation admits a particular solution in this form, which describes the standing wave in a spherical space. The special component into this is a particular solution of time-independent form equation 1, called the Helmholtz equation. Solution 3 defines how the Shell-Nodal structure of standing wave in a spherical space structure, Shell-Nodal structure. We reveal that Shell-Nodal structure of standing wave in spherical space is identical to the Shell-Nodal structure of atoms. We mean the atoms that contain two or more nucleons. That is, solution 3 defines the structure of elementary molecules of hydrogen atoms. Radial component of the solution has this form. Its solution are roots of Bessel functions Z. And the radial component defines the radii R of characteristic wave shell potential and kinetic, on which are node and antinode respectively. Polar functions define characteristic parallels of the location of nodes and antinodes, zeroth and extremeth, on ideal wave spherical shell. Here I would like to turn your attention especially. So, very important notice that these polar functions have nothing to do with atomic orbitals. The notion of atomic orbital was coined and ascribed by founders of quantum mechanics arbitrarily, unfoundedly, subjectly to some of the functions at L equals 0 and 1 and L equals 2, and to the special figures formed from the rotation of their section and combination thereof. Polar azimuthal functions define spatial angular coordinate of the nodes of standing spherical wave on the corresponding wave shell on intersections, polar and azimuthal functions. So here I present the Shell-Nodal structure of standing wave spherical space in mathematical presentation and in graphical presentation. Graphical presentation shown here, it's for the first time was obtained in physics by us. How we have obtained this presentation, this schematic presentation of the solution is clear, seen from this example of obtaining of this image corresponding to L equal 5 and M plus minus 2. So it's a particular solution for potential component of psi. This schematic representation of this solution shown here, that we first made in 1990s, became key. Just this solution led us during comprehensive long-term studies, whose results were first published in 1996, to the key discovery that this solution defines the structure of the atoms, which, being the wave formation, are in fact the elementary molecules of the hydrogen atom. So this presentation, I repeat again, were obtained for the first time in physics by us. So how we unravel this mystery? Look here attentively. We assign it sequential numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. consistently to the principal potential polar azimuthal wave nodes as shown in this figure, and found their astounding correlation with the atomic numbers z assigned to elements in the periodic table. Analyzing characteristic feature of the solution presented in this way with the numbered nodes, we made sure ultimately that they really give us information about the Shell-Nodal molecule-like structure of the atoms. So here, example, elementary molecules of hydrogen atom having completed by half outer wave shell. Each of the principal potential polar azimuthal nodes is filled with coupled hydrogen atom, to which we refer proton, neutron and proton. For example, helium-2 has two nodes, number 1 and number 2, and every node contains two hydrogen atoms, so it's helium-2 contains 4 hydrogen atoms. Carbon C6 has in its 6 nodes, internal nodes number 1 and 2, and external nodes 3, 4 nodes 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 hydrogen atoms. So hollow integer outer shell, indicated in circles, have such atoms as argon, krypton, erbium, palladium, platinum, uranium. Look here at the shell of neon. It's inert gas, inert gases, and argon has the same external shell containing 4 nodes, completed nodes, and krypton also 4 nodes, and palladium has its external shell also 6 nodes like nickel, and platinum the same. So non-integer solutions correspond to intermediate states. They define uncompleted external shell and subshell, Hall field, as I shown above, and partial fields, such as the shell of lithium 3, lithium contain 1 nodes on this shell, only 1 nodes. Beryllium contain 2 nodes, number 3, number 4, and boron 3 nodes, 3, 4, 5. Nitrogen contain only 1 nodes, completed nodes in this shell, and oxygen contain 2 nodes, number 7 in it, and fluorine 3 nodes, 7, 8, and 9. Zeros and extrema of non-integer solutions, nodes and antinodes, are in equatorial plane. It's follow from this solution. They have n-fold symmetry, including forbidden by mathematical law of crystallography. Here is a 2 example of such symmetry. It's a symmetry of the 5-fold and 8-fold symmetry. Here the Shell-Nodal structure of carbon C6-12. It is a 6-nodal structure with the 6-nodal elementary molecules of hydrogen atom. So carbon atom is the 6-nodal elementary molecules of hydrogen atom. Here presented all shell of carbon atoms, and the sections at the plane x equal to 0. And here schematic representation of the carbon atoms. The internal shell contains 2 nodes, number 1 and 2, with coupled hydrogen atom, and external shell contains 4 nodes with coupled hydrogen atoms. So interesting feature is the existence of toroidal vortex rings. It's L equal 2 and M equal 0. And here polar azimuthal functions for carbon. And here schematic representation of nodes on this on shell of carbon atom. Here conditional designation of carbon atom. In this slide I show the 6-nodal elementary molecule of hydrogen atom, carbon atom, in 3 projections: frontal view, view from the left side, and view from above. Potential and dark circles and kinetic white circles, polar azimuthal nodes, dislocated relative to each other in radial direction and are in a planes differing in phase by half of p. Of binding energy of the nodes in carbon, calculated by the of this formula. In this formula, omega E is the fundamental frequency of atomic and subatomic level. It is discovered discovered in the dynamic model, and epsilon zero here it's the absolute unit density. So the value of the binding energy of carbon ion is this value, which correlate with the calculation for nuclear carbon nuclear in modern physics. Thanks to the wave model, the next mystery, the nature of origin and the structure of all atomic isotope, was at last unraveled also by us. Here I show the stable C612 and two limits short-lived isotope of carbon, lightest C68 and heaviest C622. This isotopes correspond to the experimental data. It's ultimately small half-life has such lightest isotope. Only about has the order 10 to minus 21 power seconds, because look here, external shell contained by single hydrogen atom, not coupled. So its structure is ultimately unstable. So such small, very small half-life for existence of such structure. And heaviest isotope obtained when completed polar potential kinetics. It's nodes of rest and motion. That's also place of unstable state. So it is another in a series of the discoveries. This discovery, following from the fundamental discovery, from the discovery of the Shell-Nodal structure of the atom, and thereby directly confirming reality of the Shell-Nodal structure of the atom. In this slide I show the complex set of atomic isotopes. Actually, it is a theoretical, first time in physics, theoretical table derived from the particular solution of the wave equation. Here presented all isotopes, natural and artificial, already detected and not yet detected. Their number is limited in nature by the given set that is conditioned by the limited number of the combination in filling the nodes of kinetics. All data concerning the isotope are presented in this book, Quantum Frontier of Atomic and Molecules. Thanks to the solution, it was also revealed by us the main true cause of the observed similarity in the physical and chemical properties of elements that was first generalized or formulated by Mendeleev as a law of periodicity. So here, first in physics, theoretical periodic table derived from the particular time-independent solution of this wave equation. So it's a periodic table of elementary molecules of hydrogen atom. So look here, for example, carbon, silicon, Germany belong to in table of elements, Mendeleev periodic table, belong to the fourth group, and silicon and germanium are semiconductors. So these elements has collateral, so-called unnumbered collateral node, empty nodes, and here two collateral nodes, and here four collateral nodes. Maybe the existence of these empty collateral nodes are responsible for the semiconductor properties of elements. All data, all details about the derivation of the periodic table presented in this book, the mathematics of the periodic table. Here, a unit cell and the structure of graphite and its single layer, graphene. According to the wave model, all data presented here, it's a calculation according to the wave model. So, according to the wave model, the length of bonds in graphite is determined by the product root of Bessel function y01 and fundamental wave radius lambda bar e corresponding to fundamental frequency. Lattice constant A0 and C0 calculated as shown here in this frame are close to the lattice constant of graphite at room temperature, known from the literature. The calculation data correspond to graphite consisting of carbon dimers having the Shell-Nodal structure. So we have come to the conclusion that the building blocks of graphite and hence graphene are carbon dimers, molecule C2. Accurate calculations of atomic position and lengths of interatomic bonds are based on the iterative method by comparison and fitting the measured intensity of the reflected beam with calculated taking into account reservoir Bohr's nuclear model of atom until an adequate match between the two sets of values will not be reached. In accordance with the wave model, we should take into account as the iteration the Shell-Nodal molecule-like atomic model. Under this condition, the result of calculating the lattice constant for graphite practically coincides with the known data within the aerolith, if only we will take the dimer of the six-nodal elementary molecule of hydrogen atom, C2, as elementary building block of graphite, but not the carbon atom, C. Here is a schematic representation of the formation of the molecule C2. C2 is formed by overlapping, merging, all approaching node and of two six-nodal elementary molecules of hydrogen atom, two carbon atoms, into a single O. Like two magnets, two carbon atoms are attracted to each other by opposite directed field of the internodal bonds. Symbolic designation of carbon atom and the molecule C2 are the same. In literature I found that for confirmation our conclusion that elementary building block of graphite are elementary molecules of hydrogen, C2, I found in this publication. The C2 radical was considered to be responsible for the formation of graphite. Here, the structure of Buckminster-Fullerene, as believed it is molecule C60, in accordance with the wave model. According with the wave model, Buckminster-Fullerene is formed from 30 carbon dimers, C2. Here is this assembly form of the molecules. So, according to the wave model, the formula of this molecule is not C60, it's a C230. And here, example scheme show binding and overlapping of nodes, three multiple overlapping of nodes take place here. So in literature I found that really carbon dimer C2 is in fact the major observable product of C60 fragmentation. Here diagram showing the formation of chemical, so-called covalent CC bond in hydrocarbon compounds. Covalent bonds, chemical covalent bonds, are realized along the lines of strong internodal binding existing between the external and internal nodes, each of the joined atoms. Atoms or dimers, as in the case of benzene. Electrons, it's very important, play the secondary role. They define only the strength of the bonds, and chemical bonds realize it only along the line of strong internodal bindings. Here example of the multiple overlapping of the nodes. Schematical representation of self-binding assembling a two-dimensional carbon compounds which result in formation of the structure of graphene, and here the formation of the carbon basis of benzene. Here the structure of CC bond is typical hydrocarbon compounds. So this data published in the magazine Molecular Physics report in 2005 year. Interesting here the formation of internodal bonds in diamond. Here is a view from above. So in common conditions, internal nodes located an internal shell and nodes located an external shell are in the same plane, but at high condition, high temperature and high pressure, these shells can shift it relative to each other by, for example, an angle of quota P that is allowed by the solution, because in the solution, azimuthal solution, this is a phase angle alpha. So formation of bond between these rotated internal nodes 1 and 2 adjacent dimers of carbon results in face-centered cubic structure of diamond. Here interesting that in diamond take place as a bond between internal nodes. In this case, it's chemical bond between internal and external. But in this case, realizes the bond between just internal nodes 1 and 2. So here is the result of face-centered cubic lattice of diamond made of carbon dimers C2. Look here, it's a hexagonal wavy structure. So traditional view on the basic properties of graphene. It's very important. Graphene is an allotrope of carbon in the form of two-dimensional hexagonal lattice. According to modern view, one atom forms each node of the lattice, and responsible for the bond of this carbon atom, the lattice, are sp2 hybridized orbitals. And the lattice has 6-fold rotation symmetry. That's a clear thing here. Hence, in full agreement with the basic symmetry theory, here is a textbook, all properties, including electronic conductivity along the crystallographically identical direction 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, indicated here, must be equivalent. However, as follows from the wave model, our studies show that it is not true. Here is the, for comparison, I show the structure of graphene according to the wave model. So hexagonal lattice formed from the carbon dimers C2. Ordered covalent bonds of carbon dimer C2 is realized in graphene along strong internodal bonds in such a way that a continuous change of antipolar nodes form hollow channels inside the crystal, through which charge carriers can move without obstacles, not being scattered, like it occurs in ballistic motion. So each vertex of the lattice in graphene is formed of 3 overlapped nodes belonging each to 3 bound carbon dimers. So it is clear that properties, if here properties along all directions the same, so here it does not take place. Properties along ballistic channels along that axis and perpendicular directions, it is clear seen from this image, must be equivalent, and we check it. So truthfulness of the Shell-Nodal structure of atom was experimentally verified also by us by direct detection of the consequences caused by this structure. So this scheme of measurement for check yes or no anisotropy of conductivity in graphene as predicted by us following this structure. So here is a scanning electron image of the graphene round shift at their testing in 2010 year, and here is the contacts, electric contacts. Both resistances between parallel pairs of contacts, for example, as shows here for R14 and R85, they embrace identical conductive areas, they have the same geometrical configuration, and these resistances should be equivalent in magnitude within the permission error. This allowed us to directly, instantly monitor the perfection of electrical contact with the disc-shaped graphene plates directly in the process of measuring resistance. Here is the obtained dependence. It is as we weighted, it's a characteristic for anisotropic material having the twofold symmetry. In this picture I show the polar diagram of resistance in the plane of circular graphene sheet of monoatomic thickness with such parameters. So it's a polar diagram presented at two, showing measurements at two temperatures, 4.2 Kelvin, and its room temperature 295 Kelvin. So temperature dependence of graphene conductivity found by us during experiment along one of the direction in the plane showed that graphene behaves like a semiconductor in this direction, and in the perpendicular direction along the ballistic channels along the z-axis, the resistance in graphene is practically independent of temperature. Graphene behaves like metal. So the discovery of anisotropy of the hexagonal lattice of graphene, predicted by the author, is the next in a series of the discoveries of the wave model. together with discoveries of the nature of all possible atomic isotopes as the primary cause of the periodic law, it is a direct confirmation of the reality of the Shell-Nodal structure of atom, reality of such structure, for example, of hexagonal lattice of graphene. Anisotropy of unstrained graphene was subsequently well confirmed by optical method, by microscopic reflection difference spectroscopy, and by polarized Raman spectroscopy. In this case, shown example of data presented in this way. It's a typical for two-fold symmetry. So by now we have the ground to argue that Raman spectra presented in various papers on the influence of strains largely reflects the natural anisotropy inherent in unstrained graphene. For example, strains caused by bending of the hexagonal lattice of graphene, as is the paper, is in this paper, only slightly distorts the characteristic Raman spectra conditioned by anisotropic structure of graphene, not changing their main form. So here comments on this article. The shape of the edges in graphene, according to the wave model, zigzag edge, like edge, armchair-like edge, hook-like edge, and tooth-like edge. Now very simple explaining, convincingly explaining topological defects arising in graphene. For example, topological defects such as pairs, pentagon and hexagon pair, appear during arising when heated. Rotation nodes, additional to vibration, that lead to violation of some instant of equilibrium bonds at the formation of lead bonds with other nodes of the nearest carbon dimer, as indicated in this scheme. When cooling self-assembling takes place, existent region of the lattice returns to the initial state of equilibrium. The defect disappears. Just a certain orientation of the z-axis, but not the shape of the edges, as is commonly believed in physics, affects the properties of nanoribbons. For example, electrical resistance, because the change of empty polar nodes, which are responsible for the ballistic motion of charge carrier, are parallel to this axis. We should not confuse cause and effect. So, independent experiments carried out by various methods in different laboratories confirmed our prediction that the two-fold symmetry is a feature inherent in the hexagonal lattice of graphene. Recall that this feature is consequence of the Shell-Nodal structures carbon atom, which is the six-nodal elementary molecule of hydrogen atom, and result of specifically ordered binding of these atoms in the hexagonal lattice. Practical significance of the discovery of graphene anisotropy. Theoretically predicted, confirmed experimentally, the anisotropy of graphene should be taken into account in the electronic industry of the future, which will be based on the use of graphene. A strictly defined orientation of the crystallographic axis of all anisotropic monocrystal on substrates is an obligatory, self-evident initial technological stage which provides electronic devices produced on such crystals identical in parameter. Particular conclusion: as graphene has two-fold rotation symmetry and is an anisotropic crystal. Second, invisible polar nodes being bound each other takes the form of parallel hollow channels that is favorable for the ballistic motion of electron. Hence, it became understandable and explainable now what was described in the paper of this author, including Nobel Prizes winners Novoselov and Gay. They write that why graphene is an interesting mix of semiconductor and metals, and why electron in graphite have very long mean-free path. Now, from the Shell-Nodal structure of the atom, all these features are explained. Why carbon nanotube can be metallic or semiconductor. The rolling up is realized mainly along two crystallographic directions, along the major axis of anisotropy and in perpendicular to its direction. In both this direction, graphene has metallic or semiconductor properties. They define the thermodynamically favorable minimum energy state. General conclusion. We highlight here 4 breakthrough discoveries of a series of others that we made within the wave model, which alter our conventional ideas regarding the structure of matter. First, atoms, being stable wave formation, have the Shell-Nodal structure and are elementary molecules of hydrogen atom. Their nodes filled with paired hydrogen atom are bound with each other by strong interaction, so-called nuclear belief in modern physics. Second, the main role in the formation of molecules and crystals play a special arrangement of the nodes and internodal strong bonds in the atom. Electrons play the secondary role. They define all the strengths of chemical bond. Chemical covalent bond are realized directly along strong internodal bonds each of the joined atom or their dimers. Third, all atomic isotopes, their structure and relative mass, are defined by extent of filling all potential and potential kinetic nodes of the atom with hydrogen atoms. Fourth, the original cause of the observed periodicity in properties of chemical element is the quasi-periodicity of the Shell-Nodal structure of the atom, generalized in the relevant periodic table. So, judging by the result, the wave model can be considered as a real alternative to the standard model. Here is additional references. So, the true structure of atoms was the eternal problem of mankind and remains a problem to this day. The fundamental discovery that we have made has brought us closer to solving this great puzzle. Thank you for your attention.